Shout on, pray on, we're gaining ground. Glory, hallelujah, the dead's alive and the lost is found. Glory, hallelujah.
SquirrelyJoes.com.
Hey, Tim Bushong here from Eschatology Matters. We're on my back porch. And with me tonight is Mr. Terry Mann from Patriarch Cigars, which is soon to be known as
Steadfast Cigars.
Steadfast Cigars. Terry.
That's right.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Nice to meet you finally, Tim.
So you came all the way from Portland, Oregon.
Roseburg, Oregon, actually, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. And flew into O'Hare, which is just a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. But I got a direct flight that way, so
yeah, exactly.
That worked out good.
That's cool.
And I got to go by your house instead of flying.
See, that's the thing. It's kind of funny. Originally, we were going to do a Zoom call, and I was first going to ask you before we start. Let's start. So you brought me some delicious rye, Woodinville
rye. Yeah,
wouldn't feel right if I Woodinville the rye, right? Wow,
that's made up in northern Washington, and they're, a lot of these big bourbons and stuff you get, especially back east, that's great. They're just buying, bulk grain, whatever they can get, whatever's cheap.
Right.
These guys are really particular about the grain that they source. It all comes from little organic family farms in Washington, and the quality really comes through in the glass. So,
well, let's
cheers.
Cheers. So good to meet you. Let's see. Whoa. Getting like raspberry. Wow. I haven't even tasted it yet.
That's a good rye.
That's a sipping rye right there. So you are are you the president or just one of the three yahoos?
One of the three yahoos at Patriarch Cigars, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you brought something with you to Indiana. Why don't you tell us about this particular stick?
Yeah, so I actually brought Tim all our sticks. I'm anxious to hear his feedback on all of them because he's a cigar expert,
Who is?
Tim.
Oh.
You.
Oh, that's right.
But, yeah, this is our Habano. So it's Cuban seed wrapper, Nicaraguan Puro.
Okay.
Made in Esteli. Just, your typical...
Are all your sticks made in Esteli?
Yep. All our stuff comes from Esteli.
Okay.
Yep. This one and the Maduro are both Puros from there.
Okay.
We've got a couple different Cameroons. It's actual real Cameroon tobacco. And Nicaraguan binder filler. And then our Sumatra is actually from Indonesia as well, and the wrapper leaf, and then it's a Dominican binder and Nicaraguan combo binder filler.
So for the folks that don't know, what are the three different things that make up a cigar?
Well, you've got the center of the cigar is your filler,
right?
Where they'll bunch the filler leaves together, and
is that what they press in the mold?
Yeah, they'll press that in the mold and kind of shape it, and then that they put a binder around that, and that's what begins the shape of the cigar, and that binder holds the filler together, and then the smooth, attractive leaf that you see is the wrapper leaf.
Where they kind of stretch
it around there and get that perfect wrap and seal on the cigar.
That was so. I think I've had 4 of your sticks already. The ones I remember, one of them was a darker. I don't know. It was officially Maduro.
Yeah,
it had the Cameroon, had the Sumatra.
That's a little figurado.
Yes.
Yep.
Now that was sweet,
dude, that's
flowery.
A good cigar.
But I'm telling you, Terry, like you said, okay, I'm not an expert, but I've been smoking cigars since '93.
Yeah.
In my house. Well, I started in my house.
As a man should.
As a man should. You just open up the windows, man.
Yeah.
Crack a little piece of oak on the wood stove and go for it. And so I remember my first, the first bunch of new Nicaraguans after the communists fell, the Sandinistas fell, and they were all able to open up the market. Mm-hmm. Dude, those cigars had a real sweet overtone that not quite got back yet. But they were all Puros. Mm-hmm. At the time, what's a Puro?
Well, a Puro it's all three components of the cigar, binder,
Binder, filler, wrapper.
everything comes from the same region.
Okay.
So, or the same country. So, you could have a Nicaraguan Puro, a Dominican Puro. All your Cubans are Puros.
That's exactly right. I was going to say, I remember my first Cuban cigars back in the mid-'90s. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine this was early internet days, and it was amazing. He talks to this guy from Hong Kong, and he was like, "Oh, you kids don't know anything. You never had a pre-embargo Havana." And I'm like, "Okay, are we going to do this? This is how we're going to play it?" But I remember having Cuban cigars in Brazil, first in England and then in Brazil. And I think one of my top fives, it was an Epicure number 2, Hoyo Epicure number 2 from those days. But I got to be honest, Cubans got their own thing. They're good.
Yep.
For what it is, great. But it's not like this anymore.
No. It's like this. I mean, the Cubans have their own flavors, their own.
You know how to work this thing?
Oh yeah, I've got one of those on my desk at home.
A present from my children.
Yeah, these are great.
They're always looking for some cigar-related gift, and my son says, "Just get him cigars. You know what he wants.
Yeah.
You know he'll go, oh my gosh, thank you so much for Christmas."
Yeah, never go wrong with that.
Never.
Yeah,
right.
Box of Tabernacles would be great if somebody can find them.
What?
Yeah, box of Tabernacles from Foundations. You got those?
No.
Oh man.
No.
I wish I had brought one now. I've got 8 left, but they come from the AJ Fernandez factory in Nicaragua, and they had a fire.
Oh, that's right. I saw that.
It's years before we find them, I'm afraid.
Oh my.
I had just got a box right before that fire, and split them with Brian and Ethan, our other 2 partners.
Right.
And I really regret sharing them with them now.
So, how did you start your cigar company?
Well,
because I know it takes years and years and years to start something like this because you're dealing with agricultural products.
Yeah, it all began as a kind of a joke. Brian and Ethan and I were good friends. We all go to the same church out in Oregon, and we were talking about. Well, our wives were getting frustrated with our cigar budget, which is understandable. So we were brainstorming ideas to help the cigar budget out.
You can't just talk when you're enveloped in fragrant, aromatic, wonderful Nicaraguan tobacco smoke. You don't even worry about your cigar budget in these moments. What was that, honey? Mm-hmm. Cigar budget getting high? Huh, that's weird.
That's a good stick.
Oh. We're not even half inch into it, and it's like, oh, this is really good. This is great.
Like I told you, this Habano is kind of a sleeper. People overlook it because I don't know why. A lot of people just overlook the Habano wrappers, but this is becoming one of my favorite cigars in our line.
I'm telling you, back when I first started, my drummer from the band Love War, my Christian rock band, we kind of started smoking together. And we would buy each other sticks and try stuff out. And the first copy of Cigar Aficionado magazine we got was The Magic of Maduro. So this goes back to 94. And so we learned a lot about Maduro cigars and how they cook the bundles and ferment the wrapper leaves. And so I was all into Maduros. Because I thought, oh, these are the strong ones. I'm a man, right? I didn't realize till later, man, some of the... It's like light roast coffee will knock you on your butt and keep you moving for days because it's not roasted as much.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to realize that there's such a huge world out there full of wrapper flavors and your palate can appreciate. And so this is not quite an English market selection as they would say back in the day, but it's not a Connecticut.
Yep.
This is a Habano wrapper.
Yep.
This is like a Cuban cigar.
It's a Cuban seed. I believe this is the Habano 2000 would be the strain.
Right.
Most of them are.
Yep.
Yep. But, it's like anything. You can take that seed from Cuba, and this is what makes regions so special. I mean, they've even done things. They've taken dirt from Cuba to the Dominican, planted it, It's the same latitude. It should be the same, but it's just not.
There's your argument for a good immigration policy.
Yeah.
But we want your dirt.
We want the dirt. But there's something, you know, I don't want to get all mystical, but there's something unique about an area, and it's not just the dirt and the climate, it's the people. It's the passion and the character and the generational tradition that's passed down.
Right.
And you can't replicate that.
Yeah.
You know, when you've got 10 generations going back of farmers in Cuba or Nicaragua or wherever it is, teaching the next generation how this craft works, from the farming to the aging to the rolling.
Yeah.
You can't replicate that process.
I think maybe the closest thing we have here in this region of northern Indiana would be farming. Mm-hmm. Farming in general. And that has to be passed down, or the corporate farms buy everything up. Do you know that in that woods there are sections of old crosscut saw blades?
Oh, wow.
That are my great-grandpa's saw blades. And piles of rocks that are my other side of the family, because they cleaned out this field so they could grow corn in it. So I do appreciate heritage, and I appreciate that kind of honoring your father through the trade. And I was telling you about my son, who's a videographer.
Yeah.
That's all he does. Well, he started off in that recording studio with some software, and I'm like, well, here, try this. Here's how this works. And he surpassed the old man real fast. So I love that idea of carrying it through, next guy. And I've seen that with the Fuente family.
Yep.
Even though, you know, I think Arturo might have passed away, but his son, who developed the Opus X,
yep, that
everyone said, oh, you can't do that. You can't have a Dominican Puro. What are they now, $35 a stick?
Yeah. I if you can find them.
Ridiculous.
I never find them out west.
Right.
You know.
But that's a great example, father to son, you know, that kind of thing. So how did you guys get hooked up with the with the factory that you use in Estelle?
Well, so like we were talking, you know, we're trying to come up with an idea to finance our cigar budget.
Get back to you're spending too much money on cigar part.
Yeah, so just for the record, starting a cigar company is probably not the cheapest way to do this.
Right. If everybody could do it, everyone would do it.
It sounded like a good idea at the time.
Right. Yeah. Oh, these are wonderful. These are wonderful.
I love them.
Absolutely fabulous sticks.
Yeah,
they're like you could drive a nail with them. They're so tight, and yet the draw is
perfect.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of just kicking some things around, and I had actually I don't know if you've ever smoked any of the Reform cigars from Al Gomez.
Yeah.
So I had gotten some of those, and loved them. I just loved what he was doing with that, the ministry aspect of it, and
right. Yeah.
At the time, we were getting those through 1689 Cigars. He was importing them,
right,
and just distributing them.
Shout out to 1689 Cigars.
Yep, Chance and Ian and the boys over there, awesome dudes.
Yep.
So I actually reached out to Chance on social media, because I knew that he was starting a cigar company, or had some stuff going, and I was kind of looking for information, like, how'd you get into this?
Right.
Is there, maybe give us some hints of what we could do to get started.
Is there a password?
Yeah. So he said, well, actually, he's like, I've got some blends and stuff that could be available. We've got a bunch of stuff we're working on with this factory. If you want to do something, we could set you up. You could, essentially do a white label through us, and we could help you get started.
Right. So white label, what's that?
So that's where basically we just put our label on his cigar, essentially. Mm-hmm. And that's how we got started. Chance shot us a kind of a package deal, and I went to those couple buddies of mine at church, Ethan Harris and Brian Ferguson, and we split it 3 ways and jumped in. And, we were thinking, well, this will just be kind of a fun little hobby thing. We can have our own brand of cigars, and it'll be fun for us and some friends. And
it's like when musicians get their name on guitar picks. It's not really a big deal, because you could do it, So we started, Chance sent us some test ones. We started with that Cameroon that we've got. And it's a great stick.
It was just, you've smoked great cigars. I've smoked some of the best cigars in the world.
Yep.
that cigar is special, and it really surprised us.
It's just a top shelf stick.
Yeah,
no matter what. I was trying to guess where they were made, and I guessed Esteli, but only because it's such a productive factory, and I know there are connections there that you can obviously get into and stuff. But there are other factories in Central America that
and
turn out.
Esteli's full of little cigar factory. I mean, that's a big industry there.
It's kind of like Tampa used to be.
Yep.
All kinds of little places. What do they call those? The bodegas or whatever. Notice this box that our recording thing is sitting on. It's Rubens, and that was one of these cigar companies in Tampa that would import Cuban tobacco, but then manufacture the cigars in one of those places in Tampa.
Right.
So anyway, I've got so many. Our decorating is like at least 20% cigar boxes, holding a lamp up or something.
That's perfect. I got a buddy back home lives just down the road from me, and he's got a incredible collection of real Cubans, and he's got so many old cigar boxes. And if we ever get enough cigars sold where we can build a real lounge, we're gonna have a lot of good decorations there. So
you were talking about reducing your cigar budget. I have a funny story from '94. So I was in this Christian rock band called Love War, and we were, it was one of those people would say, I can give your CD to my unsafe friends because it sounds cool. It's actually good, and the lyrics were Schaefer and C.S. Lewis and kind of thoughtful. But anyway, our record label was Pachyderm, and their business manager was a guy named David Del Sesto. So Greg and I had been just visiting, cigar shops. There used to be one in the mall. I can't remember the name of it right now. They even had their own little line of cigars, but they were just expensive. We're like, I know there's got to be something out there. And so we were having dinner with them at the GMA, Gospel Music Association, in '94. And Greg and I are like, so, where do you get your cigars, David? And he looks up from his rigatoni and he just says, 1-800-JR cigar. And he keeps eating. And I'm like, hang on, napkin, what? 1-800-JR cigar. And he keeps eating. So we bought from JR for solid 20 years. Because mail order was cheaper, and they would have all of these segundos, factory seconds. And I'm a cheap date. So I'm like, I'll try these. There's a blemish or a vein on the leaf. I don't care. Well, you'd get some that were soft. But then you got some that you're like, oh, I wish I'd have gotten 3 bundles of these.
Yeah.
These are great. So we started ordering through mail order. Then came Cigars International, and they excelled in the sampler pack. So they'd put together this, like 4 of each kind, which you didn't have before. So you're trying all these different ones. The guys in my son's band, I did some mixing for them, and they could use my studio. So they started paying me in cigars. It's great.
Yeah.
Then just in the last 4 years, I found Cigar Pages. And that's a guy named Raymond Payas, who used to blend for Fernandez.
Oh, okay.
And that's where all these newer brands are coming from.
Yeah.
And, but whoever's blending yours, dude.
Well, like we were kind of.
Does he have a name?
Well, there's a lot of secrets.
Good. If I tell you, I got to kill you.
Yeah. But we, like we were saying, we picked that Cameroon, and Chance, I think he was kind of hoping we wouldn't because it was such a great stick.
Yeah.
And we all, the 3 of us just said, we have got to jump on that stick. So we did. And, it's instantly a hit. Everybody loves it.
Yeah.
And, we started thinking, well, there's actually some money to be made in this business. And, we might take this a little more serious. So we started talking to Chance and worked on some more blends. And, I've got to give Chance a lot of credit because, he's got the pipeline in place to get us connected with these guys, and he's really streamlined it for us. I mean, it shouldn't have been that easy for us to jump into the business, But
Well,
it was providential. I mean,
Right.
we don't believe in fate, as
luck.
As
We
Christians.
were very lucky to find
Yeah.
this guy.
It's been great. I mean, Chance is he's a true brother. Him and Ian, we love those guys, and they become great friends, and we're having fun and putting out some great cigars, and
Yeah.
we got a little bump in the road though that we're dealing with right now.
Let's talk about that for just a second. And I mentioned that to my son, and I said, well, they have been calling themselves this. And he was like, yeah, it's going to be a good move for him.
Well, I think it will. Again, I think it's providential.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell my kids, hire an IP attorney before you pick a brand.
There you go. So the issue was somebody had this as a name for a line within their brand.
No,
of cigars?
it's actually the word Patriarch is in the name of the company.
Okay. All right.
And I won't mention it. I don't.
No.
I mean,
it sounds like this is all going very smoothly.
Well, I'll tell you what. You can find his brand out there, but Patriarch's in his name.
Okay.
Awesome dude, and
Yeah.
He reached out to us directly rather than going through an attorney, and sent an email, and we contacted him and said, hey man, can we just have a conversation, right? And so he called. We set up a time, and first thing he said is like, look, I have no desire to hurt you guys.
Right.
Total respect for what you're doing, love what you're doing, but we got a problem.
Yeah.
It's like your SEO stuff's working better than mine. That's
How is that on me?
Well, Ethan's good at that stuff. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
But he was super cool about it, and he's like, man, I understand you got stuff invested in packaging and banding and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Use up what you got. Just
Really?
He's like, I'm not giving you an ultimatum. So he's been super cool about it. So
that's awesome.
We've got some time to roll out a rebrand, and we're having some fun with that. We've got a name picked, and
okay. I got a little something for you, but tell everybody what the new best cigar on the block is going to be called.
Yeah, so we're going to go with Steadfast Cigars, and we threw a lot of names around. A bunch of them were already trademarked, of course, and we're checking that out real close now.
Yeah.
But so we're going with Steadfast Cigars, and we're actually really, really excited about it. It really fits who we are. There's a lot we can do with that branding. But what the heart of this company really is, and this has been good because it's reminded us who we are and what we're doing, and it just starts with three friends, brothers in the Lord.
Yep.
And we're going to put out great cigars. That's obviously what we're
Right.
our first priority. But a cigar it's a vehicle to something more. I mean, we all enjoy smoking a cigar
Yeah.
in the woods by yourself on the back porch, whatever.
Yep.
But when you're with other men, good company,
Absolutely.
it is a vehicle to great fellowship. And, and that is what we're about.
I think that's spot on. And we don't do it enough at our church, but we do have a men's get together. About 3 weeks ago, we had guys on this porch. Same thing. Guys they're all from the church.
Yep.
Which brings me to the interesting conundrum that some of my fellow boomers would have with these two.
Mm-hmm.
Drinking and smoking used to be one word in my growing up in the church. Oh, they were drinking and smoking.
Yeah.
Only one thing worse.
Yeah. Rock and roll.
Rock and roll, that's right. And all that entails, right?
Yeah.
And I remember it was usually with Reformed guys that I would smoke cigars early on. We're talking 94, 95, 96. So that was my, because I kind of figured, okay, these guys have probably given up on the kind of legalism that adds to God's law. I see a chink in the wall. Let's fill that in. Obviously, God didn't see that coming.
Yep.
And I've preached on this before. And there's the kind of legalism that says, "Oh, I will do good works in order to gain God's favor," and there's the other kind that says, "There's 10 commandments. I know, however." And in 2000, I played. And don't tell anyone this. I know this is going everywhere. Don't tell your friends. But I played guitar on a Vineyard worship record. But it was a great band. I knew the drummer, the bass player was the Channel Surfers guy.
I'll keep that to myself.
Killer band. I did it for the money.
Yeah.
I went out with it.
Okay.
But we went out to this where we had beers and the song leader looks over. Yo, Bushong has to get away from home to. I didn't even respond. I'm like, yeah, that's so stupid. You're not even close. So I've had interesting conversations with people that they're concerned about the health aspect, and I've read the reports. The nicotine is negligible after they've done what has to be done to cigar tobacco to get it to be smokable.
Sure.
There's year and a half of curing that takes place.
Depends on the cigar, though. I mean,
Yeah.
we got some with a good nicotine punch, but
I don't get much of it.
I've tried to get addicted to nicotine. It doesn't seem to work for me. But
somebody's talking about how it's good for the old male T boost. I'm like, I don't care.
If anything, it's a stress relief for me. I've got a lot of stress, and sitting on the back porch with good folks and nice dram and a good stick.
I love hanging with the guys.
Yep.
So Steadfast is the new name.
Steadfast Cigars.
So I've got a request. It's an idea request, but whatever cigar is your heaviest, leather-lunged, full-strength, not for wimp stick, I want you to name it after me and call it the Holdfast.
I like this. I really do.
Now that's in my top 10 of all-time movies.
But are you going to get Holdfast tattooed on your knuckles?
If you name the cigar after me, I told my kids, right? I made it through the 70s, no tats.
Yeah.
The 80s, metal years, spandex, black leather, no tats. The 90s, alternative music, no tats. The 2000s, emo, metal, no tats. 2000. Do I? Yeah, I would get Holdfast on my knuckles if you name it after me.
Well, I heard that here. So we got video evidence now.
That would mean that only my wife and my youngest daughter in our family doesn't have some little mark somewhere. I'm not doing the sleeve, but that would be cool because I look like I was in prison or something.
I didn't think I was doing the sleeve either, but then this all happened.
Then it happened.
Yeah.
Right.
But
so people that back to the legalistic aspect, and you just don't realize culturally what a cigar was. Even in back in the most of our forebears are from some northern European country, England, Ireland, Scotland, Germany, France, whatever. And in genteel company after dinner, the men would go to a different room and put on the fez so their hair wouldn't stink, and put on their smoking jacket, and they'd have cigars and drink brandy and talk and hang out. Mm-hmm. It was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Working men all had pipes.
Yep.
Because everyone can afford a little bit of tobacco, but cigars, this is for the very rich.
Right.
What was the Seinfeld bit where the gangster is pointing the cigar? He goes, "You want to really scare someone? Turn it around and got that saliva. Now listen, I'm telling you." That was pretty funny.
Yeah, especially in the COVID days, huh?
Oh my goodness, COVID.
I still saw a few masks in the airport today, but it's a lot better than last time I flew.
Yeah. So, did you grow up in the northwest part of the United States?
I grew up in Montana.
Okay, that's
born and raised there.
That's kind of it.
They
don't call that Midwest, do they?
No, it's the Rockies. I mean, Montana is kind of its own place. It's a special place, and
beautiful.
It's gorgeous. We lived on the kind of the southwest part of the state.
Okay.
But my dad started a logging company in '86, year I was born.
Yeah.
And so we grew up doing that, and the 08, 09, Obamonomics.
Yep.
Did us in, and we actually thought we were going to have to sell out, and we got a call. Again, God's providence. A fellow we knew out in Oregon called us to see if we could come help him for a 4-month job. He was behind on a contract, and my wife was 6 months pregnant with our youngest, and so we loaded up. It was just my dad and brother at the time for the company. We loaded up the whole company and the family, and we went out to Oregon and never left. The Lord just kept putting good work in front of us, and now we've We got 4 different logging crews going, and
No kidding.
a lot of stuff going on. And it's a tough industry, always has been, but
Yeah.
the Lord's been good to us, and He keeps work ahead of us. And
I was telling you about my my Swedish in-laws, which, by the way, my daughter's father-in-law just turned 70 a couple days ago. And he's in great shape. He looks great, killer. And but part of it, when I got my new chainsaw, I had an old Sax Dahmer from the late 80s.
Okay.
And this thing still runs.
I'll
It's a
bet.
bad boy
they
with a
don't
new
build them
chain.
like that anymore.
But there were just a number of little nickel and dime things that were untrustworthy with it. I needed something I could depend on because, as you can see, we own 20 acres of a 60-acre forest that's all old growth. It's all hardwood.
Yeah.
We don't even let soft maples live.
Yeah.
And we'll kill them. Or cottonwoods. They can't live.
Yeah.
So I got a Husqvarna. It's just a farm rancher. It's got the 20 spars, the big kerf on it. That way I can swap chains out with my other one. But what's your main weapon, logger?
Well, I almost never fire up a chainsaw anymore. We're so mechanized. We've got one of our operations, a yarder operation. I won't get into all that, but they still do a lot of hand cutting over there, but we contract that out.
Wow.
I'm still pretty partial to the Husqvarna.
Yeah.
I was the summer I turned 13. I was going with my dad in the summer, and we were in logging camp over in eastern Montana, so I'd go with him for the week. And our knot bumper, which is the guy who works on the landing cleaning up logs, didn't show up for work on Sunday night, didn't show up Monday morning, and it's 5 o'clock in the morning.
Was it the Lost Weekend?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Ray Milland. It's an old film.
The old man said, well, I guess you're the knot bumper this week. And he handed me this at that time, a pretty new 272 Husqvarna. It was about as big as I was. And
Oh, that's cool.
anyway, I've had that saw with me ever since.
No, we still got it.
I've packed it all over the United States, and
Oh, man.
I finally had to rebuild it here a few years ago. But
Yeah.
it's in my truck, rides around with me all the time. So.
Oh, that's cool. It's like your dog.
Yeah,
There, buddy.
And it's not a great saw, but
Yeah.
I could never get rid of it. But
Oh, yeah.
I won't tell anybody, but my brother bought a new Stihl 500i.
Yeah.
The computerized, fuel injected. That's a nice saw.
Is it? It's a machine.
It's a beast.
It's, I rode in a Tesla for the first time the other
Yeah.
day, and I'm like, that's a car. That's an actual
pretty
machine.
amazing.
It is. So you're a logger, and I am. I would be like the Canaanites in ancient Israel. I'm just a hewer and cutter of wood. That's it. The only trees I take are the ones that are already dead or down. Sure. So elm trees always die. The ash trees all died.
Right.
And then last year, right behind you, right there, see that big stump?
Yep.
That's a hackberry. I don't know if they have those where you live.
Never even heard of it.
They're kind of a glorified fence row tree, but they will get
okay.
humongous.
Okay.
And I was out hauling some elm, and real windy day, but it was great. Oh, it's autumn. I'm just loving it.
Yeah.
We just had our 5th Jesus and Politics conference. I'm still on the buzz from that because everything went really well. We have a sister church up about 30 minutes from here, Topeka, and they're just great folks. We love them so much. And we go back in the woods. I came back, and Heidi goes, that tree split.
Ooh.
So I heard a weird creak. Sure enough, so we had to call a guy to tie it back for the night.
Sure.
And then the next day, the crew came in with skid loaders and chainsaws, and there was some basswood that needed down. But anytime you're dealing with property management, you've got to take care of that.
Yep.
So you guys are in the North Woods, pretty much so in Oregon.
Yep.
Mostly what, Douglas?
Yeah, it's mostly Douglas fir, and it's really mostly what we do is big industrial ground. It's a tree farm. Mm-hmm. It's a rotational crop kind of thing, and
right.
They're anywhere from a 40 to 60 year rotation.
Wow. So think about that though. You got to be post-millennial, the long view.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're looking forward 40 years. Well, in 40 years.
Yeah.
You ever hear the one where they, I believe it was one of the colleges of Cambridge or Oxford, planted an oak grove because, in 200 years the beams are going to need replaced in our main hall. Who thinks like that? We're so disposable. We're a plastic culture.
We really are.
Yeah.
No, and this is a big part of, our thinking with the cigar company and everything we're doing. Our church isn't explicitly post-mill or anything, and we've actually, our elders are actually, we've got a historic pre-mill guy, we've got some on-mill guys, post-mill guys, and we've got a pretty good broad spectrum. And
right. I was going to ask you about how big is the church?
I think we're running mid 500s on a Sunday right now.
They're not cattle. No.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good size. And how many elders for that?
We've got, oh goodness, I'd have to think about that now. Maybe 8.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to take my shoes and socks off to count that high.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But we've only been there 4 years. One of the original founding elders, I knew for quite a while. He was in the sawmill business for a lot of years, and that's how I met him. Just a tremendous guy. I mean, he's our Paul,
Right.
And he'd poured into me through some times, and just an awesome man of God. But kind of a long story, but during the COVID games, we
love it.
Yeah, the church we were at shut down, and we I say I accidentally started a church in my backyard, but the Lord had things for us to do. But Easter Sunday of 2020, we had invited some friends and family over to the house for Easter, because our church was closed down, and we had like 80 people showed up at the house.
Wow.
The neighbors were dragging their chairs in, and I did a resurrection sermon, 1 Corinthians 15, and we had a potluck and the Lord's Supper, just a tremendous time, and everybody's right in the middle of this heavy time, and it was just such a tremendous time of worship and celebration and fellowship. And I had just planned on doing that for Easter. Everybody comes up afterwards and they're like, "Hey, can we come back next week?" I'm like, "Well, I guess." So we ended up
nothing else going on.
Yeah. So we had a home church there for about a year and a half, and folks there kind of wanted to plant a church, so I went to the most mature men that were in the group, and I said, "Okay, I'm willing to do this, but you guys have to do this with me."
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "No, that's not what we had in mind. We want you to do it."
This is like, who will help me plant this grain of wheat? Oh,
So,
not I.
I told him then, I said, "Well, I'm not interested in that." And that's when we ended up joining the church we're at now, and I'm just so
my
thankful for that.
assistant pastor, if you want to call him that, elder, but he's Pastor Matt, about your age, master's grad. They came to our church because they just could not take being shut down again.
Yeah.
At the end of 2020. So this will tell you something about people. They actually PM'd me on Facebook to ask if it was okay if they visited, because they were still members in good standing in another church.
Sure.
And I'm already going, yeah, you take this stuff pretty seriously. That's important.
Well, there I just chooched.
Well, you know what? You're on the back porch, so it don't matter.
Chance at 1689, he's got these chooch coins.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
So you do something like that, you get the chooch coin, and then it's your job to pass it off.
Right.
And
right. That's pretty
whoever
funny.
ends up with it at the end of the night can get a free cigar from his lounge.
Oh, that's funny.
So
Now,
we're
do you
thinking about, Brian wants to get a top hat made and put chooch on it, so then you got to wear the chooch hat.
You got to wear the hat. That's a little more obvious than having a coin you can put in your pocket.
Yeah.
So your elders are cool with the business and
so it was kind of part of how this developed too. So Brian Ferguson, one of my partners, awesome brother. We became friends when I joined the church there, and found out he's a whiskey guy, know, and I'm coming out of a pretty legalistic background, so it was fun for me to meet some other guys, solid brothers that are into some of this stuff. And so we got to talking. We're like, it'd be really fun if we just start getting together maybe once a month and do some whiskey tastings with, there's a handful of guys in the church.
Right.
Just have some fellowship and a good time.
Yep. By the way, this is getting chocolatey towards the.
It's got some great transitions.
Yeah.
But we,
Transitions. Wait a minute. Wait, did we just say transition? So,
yeah.
back to Mr. Ferguson.
So we started doing this whiskey and theology night is what it turned into,
Yeah.
and we just started picking a whiskey genre and a theological topic, and it really started growing, and and I find out there's a bunch of other guys in the church that are really into cigars and whiskey, and it just turned into this really incredible time of fellowship that we just look forward to every month. And
Oh, that's cool.
what was really unique about it is how honest and open men were willing to get on the back porch over a cigar and a good glass of whiskey. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly tell you, I have never seen a single guy in our group even get close to getting out of hand with alcohol in those groups.
Right.
They're just incredibly mature.
Yep.
We'll come together, we'll talk about the cigars and the whiskey a little bit, and then we'll sit down and we'll get into our theological topic. And it is, it's a 3-hour conversation.
Yeah.
Incredibly deep. Guys are pouring their hearts out. They're asking hard questions that a lot of times they feel aren't appropriate in other settings.
Right.
And it's just been tremendous. But that's part of what showed us the value of
men need a space
They do.
where they can, and it's not a safe space.
No.
It's a dangerous space because you're with your brothers,
Yep.
other men who are going to tell you the way it is, like the Bible does.
Mm-hmm.
It says it like it is. That's killer.
But it's just been tremendous.
But that's cool.
But yeah, we've got our elders are. It's been really cool because this has actually become kind of a official, unofficial ministry of the church, and so we're talking with the elders a lot. I mean,
I only
most of our
laugh
elders
because
come
I'm
at
thinking,
time, but
now I'm going to move out to Portland and sign up for this.
yeah. Well, they've realized this is such a great opportunity to connect with men in a way that a lot of times we don't have the chance to.
Yeah.
So we're trying to stay on the same page and work on things together with other parts of the men's ministry. And
Are you all within like a half hour of each other generally?
yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
We're a pretty rural county. I actually live in a neighboring town to where our church is, but we've got a bunch of different communities that come together there. And
So let me ask you this: you're in Oregon, and you always hear keep Portland weird, and it's just weird.
Yeah.
I've been there. My old Channel Surfers record label was out of Portland, organic, but it was owned by Pamplin. And guess what? The owner of Pamplin was where he made his money, logging.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a reason they call it Portland Stumptown.
Yeah.
The Benson Hotel, one of the most iconic buildings in Portland, was built by a timber baron.
Yeah.
I mean, timber dollars and fishing and all that built that town.
Yeah.
But
I was going to ask you what's the health of the church where you're at? Like, I mean, the general.
Our church is, spiritually, they are just thriving, and it blows me away. Our elders feel the same way. Through the COVID games, and I praise God for that. I really do, because that was such an incredible time to push a lot of men to lead their families better and to dig deeper, to find better fellowship. And God has brought together a group of incredibly solid men there. And I know it's not by accident. He's building us up for something.
Yeah.
And we've got, I think on Easter we were around 900 folks at church. And
Where are you meeting?
well, we're meeting at the college right now, local community college.
Like a big auditorium?
Yeah, big auditorium.
Oh,
and,
wow.
I mean, that was God's providence there too, just giving us that opportunity. And
I'm preaching through Ephesians. I just got done with verse 8, and we're talking about, God's providence is like everything, so...
yeah, well, yeah.
But no, I kind of kid, because it's always nice when these things, you see them happen and then you can look back and go, wow, that was a circuitous route that led us to exactly the right time. At the time, we didn't think it was that great.
Yeah. Well, it's like,
oh no!
Like I tell you, we left Montana in 2011, spring of 2011, thinking that we were going out of business. My wife was scared to death, 6 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And we ended up spending 5.5 years in our fifth wheel after that, because we didn't know where we were going to land, and
right.
That was a journey. Lived all over the Northwest, and met some a lot of awesome.
You guys were
brothers
believers
and-
at the time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd plug into a church wherever we were. Met some great brothers and sisters in the Lord. Saw some really unhealthy churches.
Yeah.
A couple of healthy ones.
Yep.
And ultimately that was God just paving the way, preparing us to be where we're at now for this time and this place. And man, it's just been such a peaceful place to be part of such a healthy body, and we're just loving life.
That's not. That should be more normal. I mean, the post-mill, my post-mill gut says this will be more normal, but right now it just seems like there's so many. There are distractions. I understand, and everyone's got stuff they're doing. I always thought it was kind of unfair that some guys I knew that were pastors were just concerned that some of the men, they weren't as all ramped up as they were about, I don't know the federal vision or whatever it was that was making the waves. And I'm like, you guys, these guys have to work. Now, I'm tri-vocational. I still do 3 different things, But I said, look, listen, they have to work. They've got 40 plus hours and they're feeding their family. They don't have time to kick back on their couch and discuss all the different vicissitudes of covenant theology every time their waking hour, And God help their wife if they do it with her too. Honey, now listen.
Yeah. Oh, I've done that to my poor wife a few times,
Yes, we all have. The cage stage, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So you guys are part of the Sovereign Grace.
Yep.
My old pastor, his church, went from Reformed Baptist 1689 to Sovereign Grace. I still haven't had that talk with him yet, because of that first chapter on former ways of speaking have now ceased. But we'll get there someday.
Yeah.
And like I told my other previous pastor of the very self-consciously charismatic church, I was like, I'm not going to be on some soapbox, talking about this. That's not it at all. It was just at that church, tongues and prophecy. That was a big part of their modus operandi, and I'm guessing you guys would be more like on the who's the good Baptist systematic theology, Wayne Grudem.
Yeah.
His view and take on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, people call it open but cautious. There's a lot of words for it,
Closed and stubborn.
Yeah.
Cautiously optimistic.
I try not to get too hung up on some of those labels, but I was actually talking with a really good brother over at C.R. Wiley's church last night. We were at his house for dinner last night. And, up in Washington, and we're just talking about the need for Christian unity. I am so tired of the infighting in the Reformed Church.
I am too.
The back porch over a glass of whiskey and a good cigar is a great place for those arguments.
You just shut out a bunch of the guys that I think should be, only because they would be like, I don't understand cigars.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I can't believe you drink that stuff.
We have guys that come to our whiskey and theology fellowship and they bring a Dr. Pepper and they don't smoke cigars, and they're most welcome, and we love the fellowship.
Got one of my good friends. He's a member at our church, and he's on the wagon. Mm-hmm. So we're like, oh no, you just show up, and he never touches anything, but he has a great time, hangs out, wonderful.
Speaking of great time, pass me that good Northwestern rye whiskey.
Some of this rye. I'm still nursing this.
Well, I've been traveling all day, so
that's right, and it tastes really good. That's caramel, vanilla,
these guys,
nutmeg.
These guys do such a great job.
So this has gone from classic Habano, chocolatey, to now I'm in the lime and the coconut phase of the stick. Okay. See,
You're
none
just
of those,
thinking about warmer weather.
I am, yeah. Well, we had some. It's funny. The old JR cigar catalogs were written by Lou Rothman, who's passed away now, and he would always make fun of the taste profiles that you'd read about in Cigar Aficionado. I said, who tastes this? What? We'll let hints of pepper, nutmeg, and pastrami overtones. Come on.
Well, I'm a big Scotch guy, so I'm familiar with weird notes.
Yeah. What is that, like drinking a campfire, some of that stuff?
Well,
The smoky, peaty?
Yeah, you got to have that good smoky, peaty smell. But, the note that I always love about a good Scotch. We live in Oregon now. We're close to the coast. We lived in Montana growing up, but we would travel out to Oregon. My grandfather had a boat there in Newport.
Yeah.
And I have these childhood memories of going down the docks on a foggy, cold Oregon coast morning, and you hear the sea lions barking and just that stinky, fishy, salty smell in the air, and the wet ropes and the wet wood on the dock. That smell. I feel that
right.
when I drink a good Islay Scotch and close my eyes, I just go back to those times of, catching Dungeness crab out there in the Yukuna Bay in Newport, Oregon. I love it.
That's interesting you say that. The first, I helped plant a church in 2005, and I was the first elder ordained there. But we were kind of floating independently, but we didn't want to be. We ended up in the CREC,
okay,
kind of because no one else would have us. We had both, Credo Baptist and Credo Baptist in the congregation. Me and the future elder had driven out to a presbytery, and the event they had on Wednesday night before, this is when it was still two, I think it was Augustine and Anselm or something like that, was a wine tasting. Now, I live here. I try to keep in shape. I had a mountain bike at the time. I walk now. I don't even run anymore. But I had a mountain bike. And you go out there and ride for 45 minutes and kill yourself. Certain times of the year, you get certain flavors, certain smells, certain aroma. And, man, it was the first time I ever had wine kind of explained. The guy who was explaining it was a little snooty, but whatever. Oh, can you believe they water their grapes? Oh. And there was a Bordeaux that was the third tasting. It was a red wine. Do that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it smells like the woods. That's really good, amazing. I couldn't figure it out. I'm more of a Balvenie,
Yeah.
Too many O's in smooth. Better be careful.
Yeah.
With Scotch.
Yeah. There's a time and place for everything.
That's right. That's right. And technically, I guess bourbon has to be barreled in Kentucky, is that right? Or does it have to be oak?
If you're from Kentucky, they say it does, but
all to all our Kentucky friends.
I think it's got to be aged in new white oak barrels to be classified as a bourbon. These guys wouldn't be able to make a tremendous bourbon.
Yeah.
But it's got to be at least 51% corn.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Majority corn. Theirs, I believe theirs is 100% corn. And it's great, man. It's that dusty corn note, the nice kind of that. You get some of that apple pie, cherry, kind of fruity.
Sounds like Indiana to me. We got the cornfield. It's going to be really big pretty soon.
It was fun driving in tonight. My wife grew up here in Michigan, and we got the buggies out here, the Amish, and the corn coming up. And she was telling me, I remember her grandfather saying this. If the corn's not knee high by the 4th of July, you got a problem. But this is looking like a good corn year out here.
There's one of my favorite stand-up, Greg Warren. He talks about growing up in the suburbs of St. Louis and not being aware of the difference between field corn and sweet corn.
No, yeah.
It's like, you don't eat that. Your food eats that, and then you have pork loin and sausage.
That's how I get my vegetables.
Right.
Yeah. But cow already ate.
Delicious.
Yeah.
There's a family in our church that raises their own cows and hogs, and one of his appreciations for me as a pastor is to give me 2 big crates full of sausage, pork, chops. And he's like, "Oh, I prefer pig meat." He's funny that way. So, the future of the company, after you guys rebrand, and you say, is it Ethan that's your main marketing
he's
guy?
Kind of been. It's neat when you form a partnership and everybody just starts kind of finding their roles. And Ethan's really good at that stuff. He's been doing our all our IT stuff, and he's doing a great job.
Got some guys in our 3 guys in our church. Well, 2 from our church and 1 from our sister church that are starting a pipe tobacco company.
Okay.
And I think they've already got it off the ground. They might be trying to get a lounge together. That'd be nice. And I see the guys in Moscow, Idaho have a cigar lounge now.
Yeah, I actually.
Jelly.
I need to get a hold of those guys. I was talking to Gabe Wrench the other day. He gave me the contact for one of the owners there. But yeah, we're hoping to get some time to go over and meet those guys. I'd love to see some Steadfast cigars over there.
Oh man, especially with that new brand.
Yeah, the Hold Fast. Yeah,
Hold Fast. Gee, do I?
Well, I know a guy.
I got a cigar guy.
I know a tattoo guy.
Oh no!
You could, when you come out west to
you're gonna hold
hang out. We could go down and see my buddy Ryan, and we could get you.
You're gonna make me hold fast while he puts Hold Fast on.
Yeah.
Because it won't look right if you don't hold fast. I always. So I read all of those Patrick O'Brien novels. Okay. There's 21 of them. Okay. It was over. Wow. It was like 22 years ago.
Yeah.
Over about a 2-year period. Fell in love. The character development was phenomenal. And then when the movie came out, it's kind of an amalgam of different stories. But the first one, Master and Commander, and that was it. They're in love, and they never made a sequel. I mean, all the bad films that Marvel they make sequels of, Star Wars they ruined. Yeah. They could have done something, but it's expensive to shoot on the ocean.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the different all the different variables? Okay, we're gonna start tomorrow at 10. Oh, really? Are you sure? Because there's a thing called weather.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So at your church, what is the is there kind of a catalog of newer songs that you guys are culling from?
Yeah, being a Sovereign Grace church, I mean, if you're familiar with Sovereign Grace, they've got a really robust music side of the ministry. And
who's the guy?
Well, Bob Coughlin's guy that leads that. His son Devin. Those guys were actually out last year and did a ministry conference. Awesome brothers, man. And
that's cool.
I love their music. And I know in the Reformed world there's a lot of debates about it's only psalms or only hymns or all this, but and I would love to see more psalms and old hymns, and we're doing more and more of them. But those guys are putting out such doctrinally rich music, and it sounds great. It's they put a lot of work into, first and foremost, the doctrine's got to be right. And talking about eschatology matters. I mean, there's good eschatology in their music. You'll see it.
Yeah.
But that's first and foremost. But then they want things to be singable with the congregation. They work really hard at that, making stuff that's got good parts for the ladies and the men, and then just being excellent at the music. And Tim, you're an accomplished musician. I'm kind of an old hack, but I get.
Do you play at the guitar?
I played guitar for since I was 13.
Yeah,
I get by. But I'm the bass player, so
No,
we don't have to read music. We don't have to be able to count. We just
right. Yeah. So yesterday, I told you I had my nephew over to help me record a version of it's Psalm 51. God be merciful to me. On something I rest my plea, and it's 6 verses, and it's kind of a nice slow 4/4, and I was like, okay, this is recognizable. It's in the old OPC Trinity hymnal.
Okay.
Now I goof around and modulate chords a little differently than the original, but it's still the same singable song,
Yep.
And I'm all about that. I'm like, you got to keep your highest note a D, maybe an E, occasionally. Like in Hail to Jesus, there's a da-da-da-da-da.
You know what I found though? If you wear skinny jeans, you can hold that E all day long.
And I was like, if I was in a cover band, exactly like bands, I'm 64, so what is it? 50 years of playing in front of people with a guitar. Only my first was I was 12, and it was a youth group thing, and it was bass. If I was going to play in a cover band, the bass. I love bass.
Yep. I'm
bass centric. When I hear music, the bass line. There was an old music bulletin board I was a part of, Harmony Central. I don't know, I must have lost track of it, but used to post on there and interact with other studio guys talking about recording techniques and things like that. And I'll never forget one of the questions came through. How do I get that 70s bass sound? The very first response: get a 70s bass player. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Bass is a blast. You're fundamental. You can lead to the next chord. You can do like Elton John's old bass player did. Stay on the 1 while everyone goes to the 5.
Yeah.
And then modulate. Oh, man, it's so fun.
Yep.
Although my greatest, I still like guitar, obviously. And, with the software amps, it's a challenge. I would rather spend a little time. That's what we did yesterday. So we had left to right acoustic guitars, got the keyboard part, drums, and bass.
Yep.
What's next? So I plugged in this delay pedal, had stereo out, this amp, different cabinet, this amp, different cabinet, different mics, different mic pre's, and just kind of felt my way through and did arpeggios with this backward.
Oh, nice.
And my nephew's like, that's the coolest thing. I love that. I'm like, okay.
You're out of my league. I'm just.
Well, it's kind of fun.
I'm just holding that bass note.
You know how many bands I've recorded over the years?
Oh, I bet a lot.
I don't know. I couldn't even begin to count. I'd have to go through and be systematic. But that was part of my my musical crusade, I think.
Okay.
So we don't at Syracuse Baptist. We're like, if everyone's there and you don't have a bunch of sick families, there's about 140 people. And let me tell you, when I came there, middle of 17, there's 11 people. And they're kind of old, and it's not healthy. I'll just say that. And we struggled for a long time with about 35 people, preparing sermons week in, week out, still having to work a lot on the outside.
Yep.
And then after 2020, it just 1, 2, 4, 10, 20.
Oh.
And so now I have a little more time. They're able to pay me a little more. Although we're still giving 25% of our church budget to missions.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I just had breakfast with our missionary to Romania yesterday, and it was great. It was so good. So we know these people, personally.
Yeah.
But one of my things is that if you get the men in your congregation to sing and not hold back, the women will follow.
Yep.
It will happen. But I think a lot of the modern stuff is written for the sensibilities of housewives from 25 to 40.
Yep.
And it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
So when your call to worship is, break the teeth in the jaws of mine enemies, O Lord, and you got all these little kids. Yep. This is Christianity.
We were talking to James there in Washington last night about that last night, and it was really cool. They're good Presbyterians. I mean, they're
God bless them.
I love them. I do. They're got a couple little guys there, and they're working on the younger catechisms. And we sang great battle hymn after dinner, and I love it. I just love that, and I wish I was telling him this. I wish I would have learned more from those guys when my kids were that age.
Yeah.
Because I was coming from this non-denominational background.
Oh,
and,
sure.
We didn't do any of that. I didn't even know what a catechism was, other than, don't do that. That's Catholic stuff, right?
Right. Oh, it's by rote. It must be bad.
Yeah.
And then you learn to do everything else by rote.
I'm so thankful to see a recovery of that with some of these younger men, and
we do a catechism in our Sunday worship.
Do you? Yeah,
and we have it's kind of a higher liturgy, but it is Southern Baptist.
Yeah,
and we're part of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I would really like to see the convention get turned around.
Yep.
More and more. That's why we support guys like William Wolfe and founders, Tom Askell, dear brother.
Yep.
In fact, he had an older Baptist visit their church. And his comment was, "Well, it just seemed all Catholic to me, and your sermon was way too long, and the songs I didn't think they were too hard to sing." And Tom's like, "I don't think I'm going to be taking advice from that guy."
Good for him.
So we actually have a time of corporate confession, and then we recite the Apostles' Creed. And we have like prayer requests, so it can be a little less formal than your standard high liturgy church, but there's still a form. And at the point where I say, "In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit," we gather together. That's when we start, and quit goofing around. Like whatever, you're having fellowship and everybody loves each other there and it's great. Yeah. But there's a time, and it leads all the way, Lord's Supper, then we commission everyone, go do what God's called you to do, sing the doxology or the Gloria Patri and pronounce the benediction, and then everyone stays. I can't get back here till like 2 in the afternoon because people want to hang out. What a drag, huh?
That's amazing.
What a horrible situation.
Well, the older I get, and I'm not quite as old as you, but
not quite.
The older I get, the more the more I just love a higher liturgy, and I'm glad to see more of a recovery of that.
It should reflect your view of God.
Yeah.
It should reflect your view of Christ's reign.
Yep.
His authority, majesty, glory, holiness.
Yep.
We usually do one psalm per week. We got a whole bunch. Well, so the battle hymns, that kind of started with the record I did in 2020. I wouldn't get a lot of studio clients because of COVID. Everyone's terrified. And I'd done a podcast bump of What Wondrous Love Is This? It was just a short one, but I loved how it sounded. It sounded really cool. I said, well, let me do the whole thing. I'll do the whole song, have an arrangement. I actually ended up with an extra verse. That's why there's 2 guitar solos instead of just the one. I'm kind of glad I did because I could do the slide and then I could do the Les Paul and
That's awesome. Well, I'm anxious. I got to show our worship director there at our home church, Perry. Awesome, brother.
Yeah.
I got to show him your battle hymns, man. He's gonna love it.
Well, that came from Mike Foster.
Really?
See, this is where us marketing guys, or we're not marketing guys. I'm like, what should I call it? He didn't even think. Drop a beat. He goes, call it Battle Hymns for Weary Souls.
Ah, love it.
That was it. So now each one is battle hymns, and then we made a battle hymns hymn book that half of it are psalms that aren't in our other hymnal, and the other half are psalms. And we're about ready to do a second printing, and I got to make sure there's a couple in there I need a license for.
Okay.
I got a hold of a couple guys that are the authors, and they're okay. Yeah, that'd be cool. All right. But anything public domain, you could put in there.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. But yeah, we don't do that. We have organ, piano, bass. I'm on acoustic, and then the guy you hear on the battle hymns, the second one, all that dulcimer stuff, high flute stuff. Caleb Marshall, and he's good.
Okay.
He does all the trills.
Nice.
He might be from Ireland for all I know, but he's not. And
I got a little Irish blood in me.
Your friend Ferguson will be like, you tell him the Scots sent him.
Yeah. I don't know if Brian's. I mean, he sounds Scottish. I know
Ferguson is Scottish.
Yeah, Ethan, our other partner, he's got a bunch of Scottish heritage. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
The English.
Yeah, I don't even know. I'm a mixed bag of whatever ended up here.
I'm a real mongrel, but a lot of Swiss, German. My maternal grandmother, they were German emigres to Poland, who then came to the United States. The Bushongs have been here since like 1720.
Wow.
So
we might be related.
My sister is a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution on both sides of her family.
Wow.
So we've been here a while.
I did the old, Ancestry.com thing a few years ago, and I was...
Were you pleasantly surprised?
I don't know if pleasantly is the word I'd use, but I found out there's a lot of British blood back there, and
What'd you expect?
No,
Yeah.
on my dad's maternal side, actually, I was able to trace them almost to the Mayflower, which was pretty wild to think about. And what was really cool is the Lilly family, British family. What was so cool is to see all the preachers in that line, and we talk about this generational thinking, and you just imagine the generations of faithful men of God that prayed for the next generation. And my dad's story's kind of wild, and our family history, how we ended up where we're at today. But there were so many chances for our family to get off the rails, and by God's grace and His providence, here we are generations later, still faithful, and it's just pretty.
No, that's
my mom's grandmother praying for her
right
for years before she came to the Lord. You know.
Man, when I was your age, 38.
Yep, 38.
I was still driving around the country in a rock band. Now, it was a Christian rock band. I was still touring. But before that, see, my wife and I got married in 83. She used to run the lights for our band.
Okay.
We were a metal band. We were talking with some of these, mid, third tier metal, like Metal Blade, Megaforce, Combat. And it was during that time period that, I was raised in a church. I was baptized when I was 12. And I just knew I could not be a pagan because I didn't think it was true. And I knew Jesus was true. I knew that's true. So I was miserable for about a year. Not, what is it? Either this or that, but do something, right? So when I got gobsmacked by God, it's a great way of putting it. I just put music down for a while. I was like, it's been my whole central focus of life. Jethro's going to want to be a brain surgeon or a rock star, whatever. That's a Beverly Hillbillies reference, so I'm sorry about that. Did you catch it?
I did. I caught the reference. I remember the reruns.
Best line was, come on, Jed, you got to move. I mean, look at you. You heat your house with kerosene in the winter. You got to walk 20 feet to the bathroom. You got critters running in and out. You got to go over to get the running water. Yeah, Pearl, you're right. Man, it'd be a dang fool to leave all this. Just great. Great stuff. So then when I started writing again, and that became Love War. God brought guys into my life that were good musicians and good Christians and fun hang. That's important.
Yep.
And it was during that time period that I was really reading the Bible like a fiend. Had a NIV, 1984 NIV, Schofield Notes. Ugh.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I still got it too. But I think it was in reading the Gospel of John that I started thinking, oh, I see. So God regenerates. And then you respond. And I told that to our sound man, who was an elder at a Calvary Chapel. He goes, Tim, a great guy, love him, but no. Now that sounds kind of like Calvinism, and you don't want that. Oh, okay, I don't want that. And then I started hearing more and more of that, and it was like I couldn't put that stuff down.
Yeah.
And so from the Gospel of John, John 1, John 3, John 6, John 10, 12, all of that just started adding up. And I was, when I asked John Calvin into my heart, it was, I was driving around my old extendo cab Ford 150, where you can put all your gear in the back, still put people, 4 or 5 people with you. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I had this cassette tape of R.C. Sproul, and it had a little piece of paper so you could hear the highs. You had to get it just right.
Yeah.
You're too cheap to take it out and adjust the screw. Lazy. And it was a rainy night, October, probably 94. And he said, Saints, the fact is, regeneration precedes faith. I said, did I hear that right? What? So the rewind didn't work. I had to pop it out, fast forward, eject, put the paper back in, hit play. Saints, and so I said, okay, this is what I thought, but I was told this can't be right. That couldn't be it. And that was it.
Wow.
That really was it.
Yeah.
Because of the tea. The tea and the tulip.
What got me was, when I mentioned that accidental home church we had going.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do.
Accidental.
Yeah. So I just opened up to Romans 1:1 and they started preaching. And when I got to Romans 9, and I'm working all week. I'm trying to put a sermon together. You know how it is.
Yeah.
It's a crash and burn. Just get something on paper, get some notes together, and pray to God that He speaks something that people will use.
Right.
So I get to Romans 9, and one of my good friends that was, part of that fellowship, and we were not quite anti-Calvinist, but
that can't be right.
We
though.
knew better. We knew better.
Yeah, yeah.
I preached through Romans 9. Didn't think anything of it. I'm running on no sleep. I'm just trying to be faithful to the text. When he comes up to me after service, we had a potluck every Sunday after, and he says, and he was mad. He's like, "You just preached Calvinism." I'm like, "I did not. I was just preaching the text." So we proceeded to have a 4-hour screaming match.
No.
Which is probably not how you should handle things, and here I am arguing Calvinist doctrine,
and you don't
not
even
even knowing it, and I just finally realized, I'm like, well, he's absolutely right.
I think I just did preach,
and it just hit me. It hit me so hard. All I did was be faithful to the text.
See what you said. I was just preaching the text.
Yep, and it changed me.
Yeah.
It changed me.
I've talked to some. Okay, so we don't want to make submission to. Well, no one can see because of this.
It's just Midwest humidity.
That's got to be it. We don't want to make doctrinal precision the entrance to heaven.
Right.
But at the same time, I've talked to a lot of guys who, for them, that's where they kind of point back to. I think that's where I was truly converted, and I think it has an awful lot to do with that realization of who you are in light of who God is, who He truly is, as Sovereign King.
Yep.
Name of a friend of mine's church in Sellersburg, Joe Spurgeon, Sovereign King Church, and I think it flows from there. And you see some non-Calvinists can be pretty faithful to the text up to those parts. Then it's going to be recast. And I'm not saying they're doing this surreptitiously or, under the table or anything, but it's recast as something else, whether it's corporate election, whether it's some kind of universal prevenient grace or whatever it is. But it's when you realize, okay, this is really according to His the plan of Him who works out everything according to the purpose of His will.
Yeah.
And then you follow the pronouns back. So that's what I was doing in Ephesians. I'm taking my time in Ephesians 1. My nephew is like, "Man, I just read Ephesians 2. You could be like 8-9 sermons in Ephesians 2." I said, "I know. I'm trying to be brevity the soul of wit, but all of those phrases, according to the pleasure of His will, His kind intention. It's just Him. It's just Him doing this work. Now, He doesn't believe on our behalf. We believe. We really do sing. We don't sing in our church, but we probably could. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. Yeah. Yeah, because God took that old stony heart out. And
I think it's funny you mentioned that song. I mean, I grew up going to a Christian camp in Montana, and that's one of those camp songs that you sing around the campfire. And
right.
And
the camp leader gets up. Have you decided?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, by God's grace, I have.
Yeah, exactly. We had an old. I think he was probably a Sovereign Grace pastor, kind of a salty old guy, and he came to our church and preached years ago. This is like probably almost 20 years ago, and he sang it full bore. He's from Western PA, so he's got that Appalachian. Yeah. It's not quite a drawl, but it's a twang. It's definitely comes from England and stuff. And he goes, "Oh, I can sing this. We all can sing. Come on, sing it with me." And because God has, in His grace, taken out your heart of stone and given you a heart of flesh. It was so funny. I was like, okay, I guess that's fair. We can sing "Jesus Loves Me" now. So it's open season on all the not all the Sunday school songs. We're not going to sing some of those. Something about a sunbeam. I don't know.
I do still remember the Final Graph.
Do you?
Graph, yeah.
Man.
My mom actually has some Final Graph stuff. She's been breaking it out with the grandkids. So.
Do you remember the Palm Sunday where it's like?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You
Jesus on a donkey and three people.
Yep. We all cut out palm leaves with construction paper, and oh yeah.
Right. So you were raised in church.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My dad's dad built that church back in the 50s. The church I grew up in Montana, a little village missions church.
What town is it?
Phillipsburg, little town of Phillipsburg.
What's that close to?
It's kind of between Butte and Missoula.
Okay, yeah.
Out in the
Yep.
the Flint Creek Valley. Yeah.
What's it? Bitterroot Mountains? Is that?
Yeah, the
is that there?
Bitterroot Mountains are over to the west of there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I remember my band played in Coeur d'Alene back in 98, I think it was. Oh, gorgeous town.
Oh, Coeur d'Alene's beautiful. Just
Man.
Yuppieville now, but
Yeah. Well, everybody moved from
yeah.
L.A. and brought their blue with them.
Yeah.
That's why we're telling people, on X, that they say, "Oh, Indiana, what a Hickville dump, something whole country." I'm like, yeah, exactly. You don't want to come here.
Well, my wife being from Michigan said, "We're going to Indiana."
Indiana.
Indiana.
I want people to think that you don't want to be here. That way, they don't come here and move here and bring
Well,
their
I told her, I said, Tim's a cool guy. I think he'll be surprised. So.
Well, that's what I want on my grave.
Tim was a cool guy.
If nothing else, Tim was a cool guy. Right. Yeah. Here lies Tim. The dash is full of stuff you don't want to know
I hope
about.
it says hold fast on your...
Hold fast. There we go. Hold fast. Remember the character.
I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be great when we roll this cigar out. Yeah. This is going to be fun.
Well, two of my kids are going to go, Dad? My wife's going to go, Tim, you said it.
You said it.
You said it. But if there's a cigar out there named after me, like I mean, in the film, he tells his partner, Dr. Maturin, Stephen, there's name a shrub after me, something prickly and hard to eradicate. It's a great line.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't want to know anything about Russell Crowe in real life. I want to like him as an actor.
Sure.
Come on, that's how that goes. So, so your town, about how many people?
Well, the little town of Sutherland that I live in is about 7,000, and then Roseburg's about 10 miles south of us. That's where our church is. I think there's 25,000, something like that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
super conservative area. I mean, Oregon gets kind of a reputation for being, like you say, Portland.
Portlandia.
Yeah. But there's some real conservative strongholds. We're in a great place. Good sheriff, good commissioners.
Isn't there some talk about secession and joining Idaho or something?
Yeah, I'm all for that. But, I've got plans when I'm king of the Greater Idaho Project.
I love the Doug Wilson quote. Well, in my presidency, and what a glorious 3 hours that would be.
Yeah.
That's a great line.
It is.
Yeah,
they'd have me out of there pretty fast. I'm
yeah,
afraid.
it's that's right. And that happens though in some of these older, established, smaller churches. That you got to watch we have a YouTube channel called Reforming Grandma's Church.
Oh, do you?
And Jason Gingrich and he's the pastor up in Topeka.
Okay.
Of Maple Grove Church, and we've only put one out this year, but the one we put out was interviewing Tom Askell.
Oh.
And we were talking about some of the trials of leaving a church where you maybe planted or you got your fingerprints on everything to come pastor some little older established country church full of older people.
Yeah.
And what they want is someone young and dynamic and full of vim and vigor that will keep things exactly the way they are.
Yep.
It's weird. It's like a social club.
Yep. I've been in those churches.
Yeah. And to be honest, I'm kind of formulating the chapters of a book called Reforming Grandma's Church. Don't anyone steal my idea. But one of those chapters will be being reformed from Grandma's Church. In other words, what can we learn from churches that have a long history, track record?
Yep.
Even, say it, but there are United Methodist churches that are still faithful.
Yep.
Now, a lot of them have purchased their way out because the rainbow flag, it's impossible to live with. But there's something about being committed to a local body and pouring yourself into that and seeing God work through the faithfulness of saints. His faithfulness is obviously going to be on display, but not just church hopping, because that gives the idea that this is disposable. Again, back to our plastic culture.
Yeah.
So your church growing up, was that more of kind of a basic evangelical church, or was it a Bible church maybe?
Yeah, they say they're non-denominational. It was a village missions church, which is a denomination. I mean, to be honest, but I've got a lot of issues with VM in different ways, but
I've not heard of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a new one.
Yeah, they're part of Stonecroft Ministries. I think they're based out of Missouri somewhere. But their model was to go into these little country churches that were just financially, just could not make it work.
Strapped.
And they'd bring a pastor in, they'd bring financial support in, and try to help these churches get on their feet until they could self-support.
Right.
And
right.
I have a lot of respect for that model, and they've done a lot of good work over the years. The weaknesses I saw were just lack of denominational accountability, and really, which is a problem in most of the Baptist world.
Yeah.
But we had a pastor growing up that he's an old logger. I mean, that's a cool story.
Yeah.
He had a he knew that God was calling him back into the ministry, but he was fighting it, and he told God, he says, if you want me to go back into the ministry, you're going to have to make it real clear.
You have to pry this steel from my cold, dead grip.
That morning, he goes, and he never wore safety glasses, right? So he thought he'd make it a little harder on God, so he put his safety glasses on. And he went up, and like the first tree he cut into, the bar tip on his saw blew up, went through his eye.
No!
Lost his eye. And that's what took him out of the woods, because he lost his eye, lost his depth perception.
Yeah.
And, just a cool story.
At the time, this is the worst thing in the world.
Old Pastor Dell. And man, he poured into me when I needed it. And I didn't even know at the time, he asked me to start lifting weights with him in the mornings, and memorizing scripture. Well, he was discipling me. I had no idea. I thought we were just getting buff, And
I thought we were just smoking cigars.
Well,
come on.
We didn't smoke cigars in that church, but
right.
I do know that Pastor Dell enjoyed a Swisher Sweet in the garage from time to time.
There we are, little backwoods smoke.
Yeah,
I like that sweet tip one, don't you?
I got to tell you, and Dell, once he got a cornea transplant from a cadaver and got some sight back in his eye.
Wow.
And kind of got back into doing some tree work on the side, and we'd have him do some custom falling for us off and on. And one of the big turning points in my spiritual life was I was probably 12 years old, and he was out, cold winter, nasty job, and he was out cutting for us. And he had this old hoopty Ford pickup with a 306 carbureted, and he'd been cutting all day. He was tired, wanted to go home. It was getting dark, and it's cold. He was under the hood of that old pickup. The carburetor was giving him trouble, and he didn't know I was standing there. I watched him fighting with that carburetor, and he picked his head up, bonked his head on the hood,
right.
And I heard him cuss.
Uh-oh.
And
was it the Queen Mother?
No, it wasn't even that bad, but that moment right there showed me the humanity of my pastor.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I thought,
because you didn't make a practice of it.
Right.
You've been around him a whole bunch.
But it made me realize that this pastor that I looked up to, that was leading us faithfully, was a man, just like I was, and I grew up in logging camp seeing a lot of ugly, but it really changed my perspective on just who we are before God. And I people sometimes think that's weird when I share that story, but that was powerful. And I think like where we're at now, our elders are so transparent with our guys, and they're not putting on a show,
right? And
it goes a long way.
Yep,
it really does.
Yeah, if you can overcome the fear of man and the paralyzing terror of what people might think, you can go a long way. And what I mean is that will keep you from reality, because now it's almost like the perception is, well, you're up there. You're like the pharmacist. You're up there dealing pills. You're up there, and we're down here. And it's been my philosophy from the get-go that a group of elders needs to leverage the wisdom in their church and disciple that into the people, so that you're not having to babysit constantly and everything's a thing. Mm-hmm. And you end up like Paul says, well, you're sensible people. You can figure this out. You're not nuts. It's not a hands-off approach at all.
Right.
But it always starts on that, 52 weeks a year, Sunday morning. That's discipleship 101. It's never less than that,
Right.
I have a friend who's like, that's the greatest thing. You can do all this other stuff, great, but if that's missing, you might be a lone ranger and you're going to be in trouble, and you're out there away from the rest of the flock, and your target for the enemy, the world, the flesh, and the devil.
Yep.
And that's one of the I love the guys at our church. The folks at Syracuse Baptist are just I couldn't ask for a better bunch of people. Not perfect, we still got counseling situations and stuff comes up, and that's life. That's right. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I can see changes. I can see the direction these guys, that guy's life. He's stepping up to the bat.
Yeah. That's great.
And their kids aren't crazy, so that's good. Hey, high praise, right?
Yeah.
Well, at least their kids aren't insane.
Yeah.
How many do you have?
We got three kids. They're almost 14. My son will be 14 on Sunday.
Wow.
My youngest, and then my daughter's almost 16. My other daughter's almost 19. She's getting married in September.
Whoa! So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
It's really exciting. It's new territory for us, but he's a solid young man. He works for us in the logging company.
Wow.
Just a godly young man, and
excellent.
I was actually talking to James there last night about this, but we pray about this from the time they're born, right?
Yeah.
And I've been praying for this young man for the last almost 19 years.
Right.
And it is such it's just such an incredibly peaceful thing to watch God answer that prayer.
Yeah.
I've heard so many men talk about being afraid to let their daughter go and really struggle with that, and man, I haven't felt that at all.
Yeah. We have 3 as well, and they're all married, all following the Lord, and got 5 grandkids.
Awesome.
Our first grandchild just got baptized a month ago, and they forgot to heat the water tank, so that was a surprise. And we're all pretty close. There are I don't know if there's anything better. Okay, that's hyperbolic statement, but what could be better than seeing your own offspring follow Christ and actually thrive in their marriages and their relationships with others, and you can see how they interact. It's one of my favorite things. We had this men's smoke here, and my son's like, "Hey, I'll bring the kids up and join you." It was just so cool. He's like, he just turned 35.
Okay.
So he's a man.
Yeah.
What's funny is, you probably experienced this, but remember when their voice goes from up here to I was back. We always had the family computer, out, and I was working on it, and I hear this man talking to Heidi in the kitchen. I'm, oh, that's my son. Who's that man? Oh, he's 13.
That happens fast.
It is really awesome, and we just went to our granddaughter's dance recital. So we basically have to sit there for a good 2 hours and 40 minutes to see her dance twice. But you know what? You want to do it.
Yeah,
you want to do that. It's awesome. Well, this has turned into a delicious stick.
It's a number.
It was delicious from the first couple draws, but you're right. It transitioned.
Yeah.
Very well, and it's not. There's no harshness, right? Even now.
No, every inch, every centimeter. I don't know a metric system, but there you go.
Yeah, we're Americans. We use the English system. Darn it. It would make such logical sense, right? 10. Oh, no. What's that again? How many liters a motor? How many cubic inches is that? Because that's what I know.
Yeah. Well,
talk to me about cubic inches.
Well, the Lord liked the number 12, so we might as well.
Might as well use it.
We might as well use it.
What's this? The king, from the king's nose to the end. That's it. That's our standard.
That's our unit of measure right there.
Which king was that again? Oh, yeah. Did you know that there is a meter in a glass cage in Paris, France? I think it's Paris. When they decided, the French Revolution, they decided that's a meter. That was it. Just make it out of whole cloth, put it in a glass cage. That's it. From now on. And there'll be, how many hours in a day did they make up? I don't know. This is silly.
I don't know. I try to run on 28, but it doesn't work very good.
Doesn't work. No. I'm like semi-retired. I don't work all the time anymore, but I don't seem to have much free time. That's for sure. But when my body says sleep, it's like I'm gonna sleep.
Yeah.
You know, because that's just God's way of regenerating you and your tissues and.
Well, I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to value sleep a lot more.
Yeah, remember those late nights? It's great. There's a young man in our church, godly man, married. He got like 7 kids, under 30.
That's awesome.
And if he comes here, it's gonna be 2 o'clock.
Really?
Yeah, and it might be 2 o'clock with me going, welp. You know, the Midwest thing is this. Well, and you stand up.
Yep.
That's the cue.
One
doesn't work. It
one
doesn't
of my
work.
elders, his famous one is his wife's name is Lori. He said, "Well, Lori, we should let these people get out of here and go to bed."
That's right. I didn't know I was keeping you.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming to the last of the stick. This is the
Habano.
Steadfast.
The Steadfast.
The Steadfast
Soon to be
Habano.
Steadfast Habano.
Is it? Was this a Toro size?
Yep.
Or?
Yep. It's a Toro 6x52.
Yep.
Yep.
I like the 6x50. You don't know what you're going to get. 52. You know it's 50.
Yep.
You know it's 50.
It's probably my favorite size. I mean, I smoke all different Vitolas, and that's one of the things we're going to be working on here the next year is bringing some different formats in, and you know, it's all fun. But I really, actually, this cigar in particular, I want to get in a Robusto.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big morning cigar guy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm driving to work. You know, a lot of times I'll leave the house at 3 o'clock in the morning, head up to the job, and I that's a great time where I can
You and your sleep.
smoke a cigar and drive to work, and you know, maybe do a little praying, put some scripture on, maybe some of your hymns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reforming Grandma's Church podcast. That's always good for a laugh.
Yep.
You know, when I first started, the big sizes were the Robusto Larga, the classic Cuban Corona, which is 5.62 long by 46 ring. And one of the things was that the old guys, we're talking like, you know, came up through the 40s and 50s and stuff, that was their favorite size because it would always burn perfectly and it would be long enough where it's worth your investment. You know, now with some of these, you know, with the 60 ring, they got to be really good to work.
Yeah,
you know,
there's some that I love, and I'll tell you, we're testing a 7x70 right now.
boom, boom, boom. Yeah, it's ready,
So I don't know. I'm a little skeptical.
dude. If it works, that's going to be
We're working on it.
it's going to be a magic blend.
We've got a kind of an in-house nickname we've given it, but we call it the Jamarcus.
Jamarcus.
Yeah, let the reader understand.
Okay, all right. Let me Google that for me.
Yeah, but it's we'll see. I'm not a big ring gauge guy generally.
Yeah,
They have to be really, really good.
and I like I'll be on. I'm with you on the size. That's kind of the go-to.
Well, it's kind of like IPAs.
Oh,
Sometimes it's just you're just trying to see who can hack it.
Can you stand the hops in this brew?
Yeah.
We had one of our when I was in the CRC, I was part of the Presbytery. You know, I am a Baptist, but at the time, you know, I was like one of the few 1689 guys in the entire denomination at that time.
Okay.
And went to a pizza place afterwards, had a pitcher of beer, and just having fun with your fellow pastors and stuff. And they said, "Well, they have a hop slam." Really? Oh yeah, you've never had anything like this, man. It was okay. It wasn't that much. I like them for the citrus and the overtones.
And there's some really great hops. You know, it's funny because like especially Northwestern beer, it's all about the hops.
Really?
We were driving through hops fields yesterday, driving up to the
Really?
airport. Just there.
I didn't
everywhere.
know that.
And there's some beautiful flavor profiles you get from the hops.
Yeah.
I love German beer.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to Germany, and it's all about the grain. We've seen some breweries over there, and they're absolute. I mean, everything is the quality of the grain, the flavor profiles, all in the malt, and they just get whatever market hops you can get.
Yeah.
And the grain is the star of the show. And
Yeah.
that's generally
Yeah.
what I want in a beer.
Yeah.
In the Northwest, it's the opposite. They get the cheapest
So you're
grain.
you're at the German's house and you try his beer and it's like, it's okay. I've had better. And he says, Mr. Mann, we are not a warlike people, but even I have my limits. Okay, that's sorry.
Yeah.
So I remember the first time I learned about the IPA, we had a flight up in Kalamazoo at
Okay.
Bell's. And it was a pastor's meeting, and we had lunch at Bell's, of course. And I was just like a Winnie the Pooh with the honey pots. I was like, "Oh, that's like grapefruit. Well, this is lime. That's just kind of generic citrus, but it's awesome. What is this?" Oh, it's IPA.
Yep.
But I don't drink very many of them. Maybe one every 2 months,
Yeah.
something like that. I'm not a big beer guy.
Yeah, the carbs were catching up with me. So.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, look at this.
Yeah.
I'm barely hanging on, dude.
Well, I have made a vow, and I am not going to 36-inch pants. I'm just not going to do it.
Well, I beat you there some 20 years ago. So I thought that too for a while, and I thought, no, this is really tight. This doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
When I was touring, and playing 120 dates a year, and you're traveling, and you're not. So I did kind of a modified Atkins, and I was in great shape, and I was running 5Ks a week, and it starts to catch up with you. I had a weird Charlie horse, and my left foot got a little weird. So now I just walk. I go walk in the woods. I got a 3-mile track, and that's good enough. I'll be fine. Plus, I still split wood with an axe. I mean, that's something.
Yeah,
Something to keep you.
I remember doing that.
Yeah, you're right. I remember that. Elm can be stringy, maple's fun, oak's a dream, and hickory is just gonna.
I'll have to show you when you come out west.
When I come out
When
west.
you come out west, the California Madrone. It's a really unique tree. It only grows in southern Oregon, northern California.
Yeah.
Best firewood on the planet.
Really?
It's a weird tree.
Super dense.
Super dense, hardest hardwood I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's an evergreen hardwood, so it keeps its leaves year round.
Okay.
But and actually, we're hoping to do some ash trees out of it that we'll have available on steadfastcigars.com.
Ooh.
But the heartwood is kind of a purple color. Just gorgeous, gorgeous wood.
Wow.
But it's phenomenal firewood.
I've only heard of that. Somebody else mentioned this Madrone.
Well, and smoking meat.
Okay.
I'm telling you what, these Texas guys and their mesquite, they got nothing on Madrone. No.
Yeah. The great state of Texas, you were a
State of
republic.
Texas,
We
yeah.
know. It's
Yeah.
all good.
We're going to make Oregon barbecue great.
Well, the real question would be, what's the sauce? Is it going to be a...
It doesn't matter. You don't need sauce.
Okay. It's that good.
Yeah,
it's just that good.
I'm kind of a Sweet Baby Ray's guy. I won't lie.
Yeah. Well, use real sugar. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I had a cherry tree go down and just got it all cut, split, stacked, and man, it just smells so good.
Oh, yeah.
You burn cherry for your neighbor.
Yep.
It's just that's our campfire wood.
You mentioned beach. You got beach out here.
Yeah.
Beach is a scent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was actually, it was over in Germany, and they had a campfire going with beechwood. Beech is big in Germany. I didn't realize. I mean, the whole country was covered in it.
Big,
massive beech.
big trees. Yeah.
And it's a very distinct smell if you ever smelled it.
Yeah.
And there used to be this little. It's gone now. They call it the Harvest Store. It's a little store in our local area. And this funny old burnout hippie.
Yeah.
And he brought these beers in from all over the world. He had this beer. I can't even say the German name. It was a smoke beer, and it was kind of like how they do with Scotch. They dry the malt with a wood fire, but they use beechwood.
Okay.
And the scent, like the notes of that beech smoke, come through in the grain. And when you drink that beer, it's like you're standing next to a beechwood campfire.
It's like the man.
And I can't find it now that he's gone, but I would
I want
love
I want
to pair that with a
the
cigar.
new Mann's cologne from Steadfast Cigars.
Yeah.
You're gonna get this with scents of Old Dog, pickup truck, 10W40, Beechwood smoke, and a fine cigar.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Well, I think I have that naturally, just sitting here.
Yeah, that's how a man should smell.
That's right. No flowery tropics here.
Well, we didn't even get to postmillennialism tonight, did we?
We didn't. Not really.
We're gonna have to do this again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can. You know what? I'll do a little tag, and I don't know how much of that we're gonna put in the entire video because that's almost 2 hours. But hey, they don't have many long-term things.
Joe Rogan can pull it off.
Joe Rogan. Who does he think he is anyway?
Yeah.
Folks, this was fun. That was a great stick. We are a Fight Laugh Feast network, by the way.
Amen. And we will be at Fight Laugh Feast this year.
Will you?
That's the plan.
All right. Well, I'm still kind of poking around as to I did contact the guy at 1689. What's his name?
Chance
Chance about being one of the sponsors of Jesus in Politics 6, which will be this year. But if Steadfast is there, maybe we'll do a little taste test at the lunch hour.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Sounds good to me.
Hold fast, people. Never let go of Christ. He doesn't let go of you. Amen.
Amen.
Seated here at my right hand, the Lord to my Lord did command, for of these heathen I will make a king